Recently, Jeremy, through all the stuff that's been going on um, in just the world, but then also our local culture, um, with the highlight of racism and systemic injustice and all those things that are going on, Jeremy decided to kind of do something about it. And so a couple of weeks ago, he decided to have some conversations. Jeremy, you want to tell us what you were kind of thinking?
Yeah, I created the post because I have a social media, and I was watching a ton of people be vocal, from my culture to the Caucasians to the racists to the in between, and I just wanted people to be able to come together. My goal was, I can't do it on a social media platform. I always think you take care of the home team.
Right.
You can't worry about another church.
Right.
You have to worry about yours. I can't worry about another gym. I have to take care of mine. If I can bring you in and see how you're thinking, or give my viewpoint, because this time is, I can actually say it's about me as a black man. And being a black man, we're silenced. It's like men overall don't have emotion. Or it's either anger, after that you keep it in. So that's just human for us to just ball up sometimes. And I didn't want to do that, and I don't want others to think they have to do so. So by getting together with anybody, and I did have somebody come by and talk, I was able to express myself. And not in anger. Yes, frustration, but letting her know why I was frustrated. And then she had her questions as well, which was great questions. And I try to answer as best as possible, but we're seeking the ear right now. Someone to just listen. If you listen, let us get it off. If you're human, you're gonna be like, oh man, now it's gonna open up questions.
Right.
You have to ask, why are we feeling this way? Me, I was able to sit there, express that, what's going on today, what happened to George Floyd. No, I'm not praising George Floyd. He just happened to be the individual there.
Right.
It shines like social media. I like it because a lot of people wouldn't see it if they don't click that hashtag George Floyd. Do I like having a video up? No.
Right.
But you have to put it in people's face, because right now there are a ton of people that are oblivious to how blacks are treated in America, around the world, but me, Annika, identify here, and I'm in America. And it's very difficult. We're constantly taught to survive. We're seeking a moment to live. How do you do that? That's what we're asking.
Right.
We do have leaders that have plans, but they're not being heard. So
Yeah, it seems to be that leaders can lead the way in that, but really what we're talking about right now, and I think what I have experienced over the last several weeks with all this, is to see that what really has to happen is that people, not just the leadership, but that people as a whole have to see that something's wrong and decide to do something about it. And I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, and I'm a white guy, right? I think that the majority of white people, at least in our area, and I can only talk local area, right? That's just all I can know. Don't really completely understand stuff like you're grown up, the way you grow up, and the way you're taught, and or just the way that society pushes you to be fearful, to avoid situations, to not be black but be white black, right? To be appropriate, to
you always gotta, no matter how you do it, you can say we're doing it our way, but we're still doing it for somebody else. It's like we have to bend it where yes or no sir, it's just not enough. I'm identified by my hair. You can't pay me to cut my hair. Like, no, but that was something that was instilled in me. And now, if you didn't have those parents to bring awareness, let you know, build your confidence, you're even in more trouble. Because I still deal with stuff, I just don't show it as much because my parents instilled it. They let me know the truth. They showed me the movies. They showed me the evidence. But they didn't teach me to be racist. It didn't make me hate people. I was just aware. So when I do get pulled over, I know everything that can happen. So when it does happen, I get to choose what I want to do about it. compared to somebody that's asking, like, why would that happen to him? Or why did that happen to me? Like, I'm not oblivious to it.
Yeah, I grew up in this area,
Mm-hmm.
and while my parents, I would never classify them as racist, my grandparents most definitely were.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's these little thoughts that are peppered into our brains just as much as they are into yours, where you just hear jokes and you hear certain things, and it's more on the line of, like, I think there's a spectrum to racism. I think that most people are not like full blown racists, but that same spectrum is there that leads you to it. And I think that like there's bigotry, and there's insensitivity, and then there's just a lack of there's tolerance where people are they tolerate racial slurs, racial language, they just ignore it and act like it doesn't exist. That's a spectrum there, and I think as a Christ follower, and I'm always trying to define my identity as somebody who follows Christ, right? As a Christ follower, I think that the only thing we're called to be is nowhere on that spectrum, and instead it's a reconciler. Like, we are supposed to help reconcile these issues that we live in. And so, to me, specifically, white Christians should be listening right now. Is that what you think we should be doing?
Listening.
For sure.
That question was asked. The person asked me, what do I do? At first, I didn't have a ton of answers. And then I thought back, I could have told her, try this or try this. You're only trying. That's the first step.
Right.
Try it. You listen first. Okay. My one thing I did give was, like you say, to tolerate. You hear it, but you ignore it. That's privilege. You get to pick and choose, where I don't get to pick and choose. It's there. It's about me. It's constant. Now, that privilege, identify with it. Now it's what you're going to do to help change the world. Because if I get more of you that step up and say, hey, that's not right, which we try to do every day, I probably can make a change. But if I ignore it, I am the problem sometimes. Yes, you don't want to mess up friendships. But right now, I can check my friends. Like, hey, or no, I'm not going to hang around you right now because you got to fix that and I don't agree. Like you said, you knew your grandparents was on that level. Reason being, slavery was 157 years ago. I am 33.
Yeah, something should be drastically different.
People got to understand, and what catches us is we get into that, we hear one thing and we let it ride without looking for the evidence. Growing up, I would hear people scream, oh, why people still talking about slavery? That was 400 years ago. Math, we all went to school. Like, no, it wasn't. Segregation ended 50 years ago. Like,
yeah, it's a real.
It's
right now. I mean, my father, who went to Dan River High School, went to school in this area. This area was much slow to integrate schools.
Exactly.
He remembers, and my dad is only in his mid-60s, right?
And I'm not from here, but I heard about this place living somewhere else. So I understood, like, when I came up here to go to school, I knew what I was in. Like, so I knew Martin Luther King March. Like, I knew those things, but that was because of my parents.
Right.
It's not something that's given to you constantly. So now I see people here, they question why things like this. Like, I know what happened in 1965 on that Monday. I'm now telling my wife about it. She didn't know. She's been here all her life.
Yep.
But that's that part of ignoring it, act like it never happened. We will ignore it, hoping that people forget about it, so it looks like we've moved on until something else circles back around.
I think that's true. I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that white people, and I'm going to go from the perspective of white Christians.
Right. Yeah, you got in this conversation.
I'm going to go from the perspective of white Christians. White Christians have an opportunity and a platform that our black brothers and sisters do not have, right? So we have an opportunity, especially right now. Like, we've always had the opportunity, just nobody has decided to say anything, right?
Yes.
Right.
It's always been there.
But right now, people are deciding, all right, I'm going to have to say something. Like, this is the time. This is, and I think that's what happens with George Floyd's death. It pushed it over the edge of people going, all right, it's time to actually say something. And as a white person, we have a platform that you don't have, because we can speak directly into those friends, families, and the privilege that you're talking about, into companies, into organizations, into churches, into church systems that you cannot.
Right.
And that to me is where I feel the responsibility, you tell me if I'm wrong, is to listen and to hear, like what we're trying to do today.
Right.
Get the message out, make sure people understand it, humanize it, because people will see a bunch of people that they don't know saying stuff, and they can ignore that. But when they see somebody they know right in their own community who says, this is the way it is, this is how I feel, this is what's going on, you can't ignore it. And so it's listening to that, but then it's also standing on that platform that you don't have the privilege to have, right? And be able to speak and to say something about it. You know, we've been teaching on racism here for a long time. But to me, that's still not enough, because there's still so much change that needs to take place. Like, you know, I would think that those things would never happen if people were doing this, but it still continues to, you know. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that I think that in our area, it has not been that long. When I say my dad remembers integration, that means that all the adults that are walking around were raised by parents who were in segregated schools at some point, right? I mean,
yeah, like if you're 65, 60, your fountain was there and my fountain was there.
Right.
Like, but we act like that. We act like it didn't happen.
Right.
Like, we act like it was so long ago. Like, no, this is recent. Like, my grandparents were in the trenches of this. So the protests today, it's like my grandparents were doing.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, is what do you do to move forward? You got to identify that. And I always say, hold this conversation with your people. Then you have to choose what side you're going to be on. It shouldn't be sides, because that's what we're trying to shine light on, that there is white versus black. Whether you like it or not right now, that's what it is. People are paying attention more now. So while we got your attention, let's talk about it. Now, when you ask why, you can either pick up a book, research it, and choose to say, yes, this is real.
Yeah. And nothing's really going to change unless people realize that it is real. Right.
And how you raise your kids, things of that nature. Like right now, if you was to say, yeah, some things white people of your age, some get to say, yes, I am oblivious. I was. Identify with your privilege now. Okay? Make sure your kids don't become oblivious because they didn't get to see it. They didn't hear about it. It's history. You can teach it. Right. Then you can say, okay, this is how you teach so-and-so. I was holding a conversation with my wife, and I was explaining to her. Growing up, I heard about it. As a kid, I heard about it. I was a baseball player. When I started to see it I played in the Jackie Robinson Baseball League, all black. We hit about 12 years old, we merged into Babe Ruth League. You got 1 or 2 black kids on each team.
Right. All white.
When you get to high school, you got 1 or 2 black kids on the team, but now you can feel the prejudice. When I say them guys you grew up playing Little League ball with, y'all was, oh yeah, carpool, to when you get to that high school age, you start to see that thing. And it's like, okay, well, if his parents was already feeling that way from jump, they just tolerated me at a certain level. Now he's choosing for himself, because we're teenagers now. We're 17.
Right.
So I know it's genuine a little bit. So it's like, when it hits you, how do you respond? You got your anger. You got your conservative. I think I'm pretty conservative now. That's me, like growing. And I've learned a lot of this stuff from business, husband, father, like trying to talk relationships. Then you have the person that balls up, don't want to deal with it. Now nothing can happen. You can have the person that balls up with the best idea, but if they don't voice it, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So
you think that people ball up, if you think that they just kind of keep themselves because they're scared of dealing with the people around them that may disagree with them, or do you think that they, like, what do you think holds people back from, because what I think's happened during this is I think a whole lot of people a lot of people, because I've been watching, paying attention to people that never said a word about anything having to do with race until now, right? Till now. What causing them now to actually do it, or what will keep them from going forward with it? Like, what will make them want to ball it up?
It depends on what side we're talking on, because we are talking sides, so it's okay.
Right.
If I'm talking from a white side, I think the reason why you hold it back, don't say it, because you get the privilege. I still think it's the privilege.
You can. It's an
option.
option.
It's an option. But you are human. So if I do voice, you're questioning, are my people not gonna like me anymore? My friends are not gonna hang with me? Because like you said, we here to tolerate, but now when you voice, you're not tolerating it anymore. From the black standpoint, if I'm quiet, you gotta think about the factors in hand. That's why when we do choose our leaders, some of them are the most educated. But I don't need to have a college degree to know that was wrong. Like,
right and wrong.
That's right and wrong. There is no in between. You want to talk politics, you want to get into legislation, okay, cool. Be educated on that. But to know this is race crime or this is how I feel as a person, can't nobody tell me you don't feel that way.
Right.
That's just human nature. But it's always going to be different when we voice it.
The people want to throw up a lot of that. I don't think that they're completely against it, but by saying these things, they seem like they are against racial reconciliation and denying that there's some sort of system of injustice. Right?
You get to deny it.
You will deny it. So I think what ends up happening, people are hearing what you're saying, and then they're going and grabbing some statistics from some website somewhere and saying that, you know, more black people kill black people and more white cops kill more white cops. And so they use it, and when they say that, it's not necessarily that their stats are wrong, it's just that they are completely negating the whole topic at hand.
It becomes a debate.
Right.
You can go into a debate, be wrong, but if you word it correctly, you can win.
I just think that there's no way that all black people that are talking about how they've been treated and feel can be wrong. Like, there's not some sort of permeating thought.
No, you can't. I don't know what evidence you can pull, but in this situation, no.
Yeah, well, you know, when you look at somebody and you say, all right, I know this man, go to church with this man, I trust this man, there's people in the community that trust him all the time. When he tells you, and he's willing to have a conversation like right now, and he tells you, I have felt this since I was a kid, and here's what it is. You can't just come back with that with a bunch of stats and say, well, that's not correct. You shouldn't feel that way. Or
now I'm overriding your feelings.
Right. And there's no, to me, I don't care what kind of stats you want to throw up. If you feel that way and have felt that way since a child, there's something legitimate to it, right? I mean, it's legitimate.
Exactly.
There's certain situations you can get into where you go, I know what's going on. I may not be able to prove it or tell you or whatever, but in my gut, in my instinct, we call that the Holy Spirit. Right. I know that what is happening right here is wrong. And if you have felt that since you were a child, then there's no way to make that illegitimate. Right. It's a legitimate thing. And I think I don't know. I try to think about the responses of people during this, specifically white people, right? And so it's quiet, like you said, don't say a word. It's, stand up and finally say something, right? Or it's debated, right? And make and try to make it not valid anymore, right? And that is a dangerous spot to be in.
Because the hardest thing right now is the go-to. If we voice or give you something and say, oh, black man slaughtered by a police officer. What about black on black crime? We're talking about that right now. Like, people are dealing with that. So if you're watching this, there are people out there fighting black on black crime. All right? What we're getting to is, in this situation, what just happened, the things people saw on film. I don't need a trial for that. I don't need to wait around. I don't need to shut down your police station to say we're going to arrest these people. That was a crime. So if me being black, I see a police officer, I don't hate you, but is there fear? Yes, because I'm supposed to be the one coming to you. But all the videos I have is either my skin color running being shot, and then I hear a police officer say, well, police officers fear for their life every day. Yes, that is, okay, cool. But in these videos, how fearful are you when you're the gunman?
And it's just those that have been videoed. You know, I don't.
Yes,
want
it's just those that's been
right.
videoed.
I don't want to vilify our cops at all, but what I know is that when you say that and you see the videos and stuff, but you also talk about, and not just you, like every black friend that I have, right, says it's not just that, it's when I get pulled over for this, when I get pulled over for that. Like, Adam, how many times has your car been searched when you got pulled over? And
yes.
Adam says 0.
And
right?
I've had my experiences where, picture, okay, you're a college kid now, you go home to visit. If it wasn't the fact that we had our Averett duffel bags and Averett t-shirts on, there's no telling. We literally went to a store. We see the cops in their car. We're at the store, get our stuff. We're heading back here to Danville. Luckily, my mom works at the hospital. It's right before you exit. So, cops get behind us. We're like, hey, they're gonna pull us over. So I call my mom. I'm like, hey, we need for y'all to come outside. We're not stopping until we get to the hospital. They didn't turn their sirens on yet. Once we got close to the hospital, they flicked their sirens. We pull over in front of the hospital. My mom and the rest of the workers are waiting. They wanted to tell, we had to get out of the car. I stayed on the phone with my mom. Even though my mom's right there, they're coming outside. It's like, we saw you follow us for at least 2-3 miles. You're following us. So that means you're running tags. You didn't see nothing. You didn't have a reason to pull us over. And then you say, so where y'all headed? We have to show you with Averett. This is my student ID. Like, we got football practice in the morning. Like, that's where we're going. But it's like, why? Because we hopped out of the car, 3 black dudes going to the store. That feeling is different.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, I do not, I can't say we. I have never had that feeling, ever. Right?
Okay, even today, you probably can. When you see a cop, hey, how y'all doing? You having a good day? I intentionally do it as a black man to make them feel comfortable. I'm not even gonna lie. That's not, I gotta play the game. Why does it feel like a game? When you're playing games, you're surviving.
Yeah.
Until somebody wins. Like, I want to be able to say, hey, how you doing? I mean it when I'm saying it, but it's still an underline to why I gotta show I'm here, I'm okay, shake my hand. Like, it's not the same when you're doing it.
For sure. And you know, these things are hard for you to understand when you're not in it.
It is. It's
hard for you to. It's hard for you to feel how somebody could ever feel that way when you've never felt that way, right? But I keep coming back to, well, it don't matter whether I can identify with what they're feeling or not. What I need to do is be able to say what you're feeling is not invalidated. What you're feeling is not wrong. What you're feeling is not right. And if you feel that way, if somebody in America, any person in America feels that way, there is a problem.
Yes,
right? There is a problem. And I think that, you know, that most, I really do feel this way. This is hard to say, but I really do feel that most people want to think that that's a problem and want to see some change.
Right.
But I also think at the same time, most people won't really step up and do what it takes to make that change, right? Like, I think most people want it, but they don't want to do it.
Exactly.
Right? They don't want, you know what I mean?
That's the hardest part, because now you're thinking from a personal level. Like I said, you're going to be thinking about my friends. Like, for instance, I like when you stand up there and say, hey, if you want to leave now, this is your time, but you're always welcome to come back. I'll sit up in the chair if you know. You wouldn't have to say that if it wasn't an issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, that's in your mind still, but you still got to let them know it's okay to come back. But this is a fact. This is proof. This is evidence-based. If it wasn't a problem, you wouldn't have to add that little part.
Right.
That little part changes everything.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's a really good example because I can relate to that.
Exactly.
So when you say that, I feel that.
And so when you said it, and I say I sit up because I can relate now. I know it's about to get. This is about to be some truth. It's about to be truth. And I sit up. You know, it's my wife. I sit up on those parts like, yeah, man, like, I'm listening. Got us today. Like, yeah, so I would love to say don't try to relate so much to a lot of people, because that's one thing people are going to try to shoot for. You can't relate.
Yeah.
Like you said, we only can relate when I say that part.
Right.
You can't relate, but you can identify with right and wrong, and then, like I said, you choose. And like I said, even when I'm expressing like what happened to me with cops or what's going on today, I don't hate cops. I don't. That's what happened. That is a fact. That is what happened. You can try to break it down however you want. That's just their job, but I never read that anywhere. You can't let that happen. We can't let that happen. That's when we gotta talk. I don't think everybody understands what we is. We all have our individual ways on how things supposed to go. Until we say it's a we thing, we are in trouble.
Yeah,
like I'm not
agree.
gonna lie.
I
We
agree.
are in trouble.
I think that's one of the biggest things that permeates our culture in a negative way is that, of course, we have unique identities, right?
Right.
And I think that's God made. Like
Mhm.
like we are not supposed to be colorblind. That's
Right.
wrong, because they were created with distinct purposes.
Mhm.
We're supposed to be like color blessed, not colorblind, right? So we're supposed to have individual uniquenesses, but we're supposed to do that in the realm of the whole. Like it's we, right? It's all of us together. We're all the exact same, even though we are individually unique. And that is, to me, the real problem that permeates all of it, is there's so much ways that we'll take our individual uniquenesses and we'll separate because of them, right? And we'll segregate because of them. And that's not just color. That's all kinds of things,
a
right?
lot of ways.
It's
Yeah.
all kinds of things.
Rich, poor,
Right.
Yeah.
And so we lose this we part. And then when you have a whole group of people that are feeling a particular way, being treated a particular way, and we're in this separate thing, now they're out of the we, and we can't do nothing about it because we haven't included them in we, right?
Exactly.
Like the we is the big thing. And I think for me, trying to figure out how we function in our locality, right, in our location, there are certain things that you'll look at and you'll go, we are doing okay here. Like we're improving, we're getting better
Right.
compared to other places. But when we compare that to other places, I mean, what are we comparing it to?
Right.
So we're doing better than the Minneapolis area. Great. What does that mean, right? So the key to me is when we think about our local area is how do we come together as we, right? And for what I'm hearing you say, the best thing for people that are not of color to do is to listen, but then not necessarily try to relate, because you can't necessarily relate.
Don't try to relate.
Right?
You listen, and then you have to choose right or wrong, and then when you see
Choosing
it,
right or wrong I think that's the biggest thing you said today is no matter what, whether you can relate to it or not, you know right or wrong,
Yes.
right? You know whether or not somebody should be excluded or treated differently or not, right? And then once you see that, once you know that, once you feel, and I think most people do feel this, hey, you shouldn't be treated that way. What do you do with that? You've got to be able to speak that into, sounds like what you're saying is, into the circles that you have, right?
Yeah,
Not
close.
just some random platform to everybody,
You gotta
social
do
media thing.
what
right?
hits you the most, the people you are around. Because growing up, they used to tell us, and like, be careful who you hang around. Well, I ain't doing what he doing. But if a person just sees him bad, and then you his friend, oh, y'all all must be. Like, I see it now as an adult. And in this situation, like, it's riding right now.
Yeah.
So when we're saying what to do, like you said, don't try to identify, but listen, like, to people in the world or in this community, to my white friends, cause I gotta use it because that's what's going on today.
Right.
I gotta identify with that. If you say you got a black friend, all right, one thing that hurts us the most, and I think I can speak to all black men or women that have associates, friends of another color, doesn't matter. When little Johnny has a friend, Brad, he's just gonna say, Brad's my friend. If little Johnny has a friend that's me, I'm going to be the black friend. Why can't I just be the friend? Right? Or I hear a person say, well, I'm not racist. my trainer's black. What? Like, no, I'm sorry. Do not say that. Don't name your one black colored friend and try to use it with that broad word, that racist word. Do not try to use that one person to claim you're not.
Yeah, if anything, it just shows that you indeed do have some, even if you can't see it, even if it's subconscious, some bigotry within you.
Yes, because you still notice that I was black.
Yeah, see, and I know that, like, I try my best to teach the gospel, right? And the gospel is rooted in reconciliation, right? Everything's rooted in reconciliation. The church is the lead on reconciliation. And I try to do that. And still, and I said this at the prayer thing the other day, still though, my first impression, my first thought when I heard about George Floyd's death was, I would be outraged if I was black. And it took the Holy Spirit like a half a nanosecond to say, what? Right? Like, that shows that you're a part of the problem too. Even if you are somebody who's trying not to be, there's still these things that you got to keep. So we all got stuff we can work on, keep pushing forward. You know.
Some people want things to stay the same. There's always room for growth. Like, that's the craziest thing. Like, people will dumb it down, just try to keep everything the same. You can grow. It's just with growth, it's just like running a business. You're gonna lose friends. You're gonna lose certain customers. Yeah. But you're growing. Like, I see, like I said, I see you. The reason why I knew I could hold this conversation, I see you. I see things that go on. I hear things, but to see you still go. Yeah,
you know, that part of that thing that really bothered me about myself. You know, it was one of the things where when you see that stuff in you, and you go, man, that's not who I'm about. But my first instinct showed this privilege, showed this separate idea, showed this thought. Like, I can't tell you how many times in my life I have described a black friend as the black friend, right? I can't tell you how many times, right? And what is the need for me to do that? Is it because there is an assumption that if somebody is my friend, they are white? And so I have to qualify it, even though I don't even think I know I'm doing it, right?
Yeah,
I have to qualify it because there is this natural assumption that I would only have white friends, right? And so I have to say my black friend because there's that deep-rooted assumption.
Yes. The show is still there.
Yeah, it's still there, absolutely.
It's fresh. Like, one thing I like when you say you watched the video and it made you say it.
Yeah. But
can you say the fact that it's constantly thrown at you right now, it makes you had to question yourself?
Absolutely.
And that's what we're trying to do now.
Absolutely. So, the Holy Spirit made me question myself immediately when I said it, and I felt this check of, Adam, you should be outraged anyway because you are black, you are white, are, we're all the same people. Right?
I like this.
But then I've had to do it. I've had to be checked about that thought multiple times, like constantly. It's still like as soon as you sat down, it's the first thing I thought of was that's how I felt when I first heard it. That's what I thought, and that shows that I'm part of the problem just as much as anybody else. Even somebody who's trying to stand up as a white guy and say no, right? Even somebody who's trying to build a multicultural church that looks like the neighborhood that we sit in. Still, though, there is a piece of me, there is parts of me that don't even realize, for the most part, that it's there.
Learned behavior, though.
Right.
You're not the first person to say that.
Right.
Like you said, you're not the first person. So picture if, like, I'm just me, this is the way I think. If your dad was a slave owner, all right, if you was a farmer, right, chances your son's gonna be a farmer. Right. So if my dad was a slave owner, chances are my mindset is still slave owner. Even if I decide, okay, well, Dad, I'm not gonna take over the farm. I was raised on that. Yeah, you're getting away from saying I own the slave or whatever, and people become more diverse because they travel more now. Sure. So it's dumbed down, but you still get that assumption, like, these are my friends. This is more my people type of vibe. Absolutely. So it's a condition. The trick is, what are you going to do about it? Right. That's the hardest question out right now.
what do you do about it? And I don't think there's one answer. Like, I think
It's
that
not.
there's a tons of things. Like, yes, you need different legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we need reform in lots of areas
Yes.
so that people are treated equally. But we also need people individually working on them, their own little biases, their own little bigotry, you know.
Right.
But we also need, how do we teach our kids through this moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, up until now, we may not have thought nothing about it, but right now we have an opportunity to form them as children, so that maybe when they're older, like I remember my oldest daughter, when she was about 10, we were watching a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were watching well, you know, I had to pause and rewind and stuff
Back
because,
then,
you know, but she was little, so I'd have to get rid of stuff. And I think we were watching the Ray Charles movie,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a bunch of scenes in there she couldn't see,
Yeah.
so I'd be pausing. Well, I remember them dropping the N-word
Mm-hmm.
in the movie, and because it was, that was the culture that the movie
Right.
was representing. And so all of a sudden, like, I paused it to fast forward some other weird scene, and she says to me, "What is that?" And she says the word back.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me was shocked that she didn't know that word yet.
Right.
But then the other part of me was terrified
How do I say
of
it?
what do I talk about with this, right?
Raw.
And
uncut.
it was that moment where I just had to go, all right, let's just throw it all out there.
Let's pause this movie.
And don't you know, now she's 13. 3 years later, we got this George Floyd situation going on, and when we talked about it, it came that moment when she was 10, where that N-word was dropped, came right back up in that moment, right? And so there's a chance, I think, one of the things we do also is we pour into our children right now so that they understand the truth of what's happening around them,
Right.
but also the fact of what is right and what is wrong, right? And that all people are created equal, and that equality is not just we all go to the same school, right? That equality is on how you feel and how you treat those people, right? How you think about them.
Right.
So I think what we're working on too, and I see this with my kid, is we may have changed people's behaviors towards other cultures, but where we're at now is we still have thoughts,
Right. Yeah.
Like
sure.
we have these predominant thoughts about it that people are kind of keeping to themselves.
Right.
And what can happen with the next generation, and that's one of the things we can do right now too, is we educate our kids, teach our kids, is that they don't even have those thoughts going forward, right? That we can kind of get rid of them having the same thoughts that we grew up with, even though we didn't act on them or whatever it is, right? And so that hopefully, when she sees a tragedy like that went down, she doesn't think, if I was black, I'd be outraged first.
Right.
And have to process through that.
Exactly.
She thinks, oh my gosh, a human being should not be treated that way,
That's
right?
it. Like feeling like a human being and not a color. Like like I said, you can't relate. No matter how I express it, you're not gonna be able to relate. But the biggest thing is, like I tell people to this day, if I worked somewhere, I'd rather know that guy was racist than to not know he shakes my hand. Like, I'd rather know, because now I get to do something about it. But where we live in, you got some that are very honest, but even in their lane, they're not even trying to come by you, bother you, work with you. Okay, cool. Now I can change my route, but don't hide behind it, like, and wait for the moment. Because no offense, like I got a lot of people I consider associates. I got my best friends. It'd never be that. But I have my associates, and I'm always open for relationships. Something I had to learn. But now I get to choose, because this is making people voice. But I'm still open to hold the conversation. Like, let me tell you how I feel and what I go through. All right, have you ever seen this? You have? What did you do about it? It makes me feel like you're part of the problem if you don't act. Okay, now you get to sit down with me and say, okay, well, I was nervous about saying it because of this. I know that comes when I tell you, I know when a white person speaks up, there's a solid chance you just lost 50% of your votes. No matter how you put it.
Yes.
Dude, so now as me thinking about that, I get to say, okay, I choose to say, I understand. Now he has to choose. It doesn't hurt my feelings as much.
Right.
It's like, you still got to live your life. But at the same time, let people know when you don't say anything, you're with it.
Yeah.
Like, we like to say you with the problem. Yes, you are.
Yeah, silence definitely does that. You know, I mean, and that's what to me, that's what it went back to what I said before was the reason that silence is a problem for white people right now is because we have a platform that you do not have. Mm-hmm. We have a platform sitting in our lap to speak, and if we don't speak, it speaks just as loudly as if we speak, mm-hmm. right? Because by not speaking, it's just like ignore it and let it go away, or I don't agree, so I'm just going to be quiet so I don't mess up no relationships, or it's cowardly. I do not disagree. I want to speak up against it, but I'm gonna cower down to the people that I'm gonna offend in my life.
Right.
You know, right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll let that hurt happen to you instead of that hurt happening to my white friends that won't agree with what I'm saying. Right. And which then to me is just more part of the problem.
More part of it's the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems. Best thing to do when you identify and you recognize, like I said, I love social media right now only because it gets people involved.
Yeah.
I don't like it because people get their voice and some of the stuff is energy draining.
Yeah, they just want to speak and not listen. You know,
Yes.
like social media tends to be this platform of let me just say what I want to say, mm-hmm. and I don't give them, you know, anything about what anybody else says, right? And so you delete comments and you argue with people and stuff mm-hmm. like that instead of it being a dialogue. But it does, when there's something that needs to be highlighted, when something needs to be said, it does give you the opportunity to do that, right? Whereas you didn't have it before. You know, the newspaper spoke for you before, right? Mm-hmm. And now the newspapers don't speak for you at all. You're your own news. Yeah, you can say what you feel mm-hmm. no matter what. And before it was, you know, that was another part of the system where if the newspapers were bigoted, then that's what you got, right? And that's what was thrown out there. And that was the news that was shared. And that's a little different now. And of course it comes with its own set of problems, right? You know, right? But I do think that part of what has allowed us to actually have these conversations mm-hmm. now is the fact that there is platforms for people on social media to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Whereas before, I don't think there were people that made these conversations happen before, but there was no real outlet to get it out there. There was no real way for people to know.
It can get covered up. Now
it can be hidden.
We live in a world where it's out there.
Yeah.
Like it's raw. It's uncut now. Like take it, observe it, and then react. Like if you react, whatever your reaction becomes, I say do it. But you gotta think about it first. If you actually sit back and think, you're gonna give yourself the best answer. And then how you wanna go about it, you gotta live with that decision. That's one thing anything you do in life, you're gonna think of something, you're gonna think about the consequence, and then you're gonna act on it. And then you gotta accept what comes with it. That's the toughest thing. Some people are not ready to face that. Because like you said, like, you identified, you saw yourself being semi-racist.
Yeah.
Like you had to identify.
Absolutely.
You were saying that, hey, if I was black, I'd be livid. Like, it's hard for me to say it. It's like because everybody's not racist. Not by choice.
No, and I think that's what I was saying. I think there's levels to it. But
yeah, it's levels. So it's like, what do you do? Consequence. Do you think about the consequences? How serious it is to you? How much do you really care?
Yeah.
Because I can be sensitive and still go about my business. Now, I can't. Like, I can say, oh man, that's messed up.
Yeah, and then just keep on going, right?
Until it hits home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it hits home, oh yeah.
When it gets personal, and I think that's one of the things that's got to happen is it's got to get personal, mm-hmm. right? That, for me, over the last couple of years, what I felt God doing is making this thing more personal, mm-hmm. you know, of making me understand my humanity is the same, and actually in Christ, it is less than anybody else's humanity, right? Mm-hmm. That's the way I'm supposed to live.
Right.
And it has caused me to pay more attention to the things that are inside of me that are bigoted, mm-hmm. right? And that are biased.
Right.
And to be honest with them, call them out, and then change it, like
Yeah, deal
work
with
towards it, deal with it,
But that's
right?
growth. People
And
don't
it's,
see it.
it's
that
tough,
way.
and most people, I do truly believe that most people don't necessarily want to take those hard, difficult steps to grow, right? And especially one like this, because this one's humongous, this one's big, this one's deep.
This is world
You know,
changing.
right,
Like,
right.
You can change the world right here. Like, this thing can go two ways, I believe. It's gonna be so huge of a divide that we're back at square one.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're gonna start to change. Like, you literally gonna see progression on both sides, and yeah, peaceful protest can actually be peaceful.
Right.
My thing is right now, if people, my answer to protest, peaceful protest, if you actually pay attention to them, there's signs, no guns. For me to be chief, or whoever I am, if you actually pay attention before the looting or any of that, because it's a protest, riot, looting. Peaceful protest, we're marching, we're not harming anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Common sense, if you lock in, it's people watching it or who are sitting there protesting. If I tell you to line up, block them, that means I disagree with what they're saying. If they're saying killing this man was wrong, or you didn't arrest the officer quick enough, is wrong in this situation, you're the problem. When am I know you have to do your job, but sometimes we care about jobs more than we care about people.
Mm-hmm.
Comes with territory, yeah, but it doesn't have to. You're yourself, you deal with it. When am I gonna say, okay, this is not right for me to, why am I blocking? Like, it's peaceful protest. They haven't harmed anybody.
Right.
Why am I pulling out my gas guns and rubber pellets? Why? Nobody's asked that question. Even if you say, all right, I quit, right? You still didn't ask. That was the easy way out. Yeah, you disagreed, but you didn't ask why.
Yeah, why are we doing this? Right.
Exactly. Now, let's get somebody up there that thinks the way I think. Like, let's talk, let's reconcile. Because there were, when it shined, I looked at it, I read it, I saw the videos. There were stations that literally talked about no weapons, no anything. They literally were talking to people. And it was some of the best moments. But we don't control social media, so we get what we get. Who are you? What is your mindset? Whoever's in office telling me that's not a peaceful protest when you first see it. I got a sign, I got people. The riot and looting comes from the frustration. You got your gun on me. I'm still sensitive enough not to attack you. Just notice.
Right.
The riot
Instead of
comes on the
attacking
empty
those
building.
Right.
The empty building. Protesters are smarter than what people make it seem. They care more than what it looks like. The building's insured. I'm not telling you to burn it down, but if that's your action right now, me personally, I feel as though they need to express themselves, and that's the way they learn how, because they tried it the peaceful way. It didn't work. Now, kids, if you got a kid that tries to say they don't like this or whatever, the next step, if you ain't listening, they're about to act out.
Yeah. The majority of the protests that have happened, the vast majority of them have been peaceful protests. The vast majority of them are.
They start
right?
peaceful protests, but
and then you feel that line or
that
whoever
line
it
gets
is
drawn,
or whatever, right?
and you're still questioning as you're protesting, like, why are you here with your guns? Like, if you actually pay attention to conversations of the peaceful protests in front of the officers, they're asking them why. But the officers are not asking, Captain, why?
Right.
Humans identify. Like, this is a peaceful protest. If you had to tell your kid today, hey, draw me a peaceful protest, or write a sentence, a paragraph of what is a peaceful protest, it's going to be everything they see in the video until you see officers line up, until you see rioting,
Right.
looting. One thing that frustrates me as a black man, even being around the people I'm around, more concerns about a target than themselves, because they can relate to target. Shot there. I didn't hear nothing. When it was peaceful, nothing. The day Target video popped up, I heard the most stuff. I'm asking, did they hurt any individuals in Target? Like, what? Like, anybody get killed in Target? I don't agree with it, no. Why is that your go-to? But we can give you a video, 8-minute video. Of you literally saw an execution. If you've never seen one before, hey, here it is. Raw and uncut, not a war scene in a movie, not an act. We gave it to you. Your reactions wasn't quick enough. I'll give you Target burning down. It's
Everybody reacts.
Material people. Materialistic things. Like, we don't value human life as much as we should. We don't. And that's how I feel personally. You don't. Like, shop at Target.
Yeah, that's the bottom line of it all is a portion of human people rightfully feel like they are not treated as fully human.
Yes.
Rightfully feel, because they're not,
right,
in lots of ways, right? And then the rest of humans who feel like they are fully human or treated fully human have got to stand up for the part of humanity that feels like they're not being treated, and they aren't.
Yeah.
I don't want to say feels, I mean they aren't fully human, right? And then that's how they're being treated, and the rest of the people have to stand up for it. So I don't care whether I completely agree with you or the rioters or the looters or anything like that, right? The protesters. I don't care whether I completely agree with them or not. Right. I have to stand up for a fellow human being who is not being stood up for, right? I have to. And our beliefs and our how we agree on stuff is secondary to your humanity. It's secondary to my humanity. And matter of fact, if we started off with our humanity in common, we'd probably solve a whole lot of the rest of them issues too, because we start off with, we're all just people, right? We're all just humans. Well, Jeremy, thank you for being with us today, man. I want to thank everybody for paying attention, and I want you to know that Jeremy is a pillar in our community and is open to having conversations. And so whether you agree with what he said or not, whether you agree with what I said or not, the bottom line is that we are all trying to grow and change, like you said, which is not easy to do. And it's going to cause us to have to walk through and admit some things that we believe or thought or grew up in or whatever, or have ignored. And then what do you do about it? And so you can disagree with one thing that was said in the video today in our interview, and you can just disregard the whole thing. Or you can be more of a grown-up and listen to the entirety of the conversation and try to feel what he and many other people are feeling and engage in doing something about it. So
there's one thing I do want to say,
please.
like, once you do listen to the entire conversation, if you are concerned or looking for something to do, if you have a black friend, this is where you get to use that my friend is black. Listen to me. Ask them, are they okay? And when you ask them, follow it up with, how do you feel about today's current events? Listen, they're not looking for you to relate. We know that's not it.
No, you can't do it, right?
Ask them, are they okay? I guarantee they treat you 10 times different. After that, you just gotta listen. But if you don't, it's very understandable. We get it. But ask your black friends how they feel with today's current events and how they feel as a person themselves with what they deal with. Because we identify with too much. This is a relationship conversation. You gotta ask your significant other sometimes how they feel.
Absolutely.
Ask your friend how they feel. And I'm telling you, it will help out. That's the first step. Ask your black friends how they feel today.
I think we can all do that, and that's a place for us to start from. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you guys for joining us. We are praying for you and our community.